Now, as the tensions are escalating between President Donald Trump and the Harvard University, the Trump administration has directed US embassies worldwide to stop scheduling new visa appointments for student applications. The State Department is preparing to expand its social media vetting of international students. Secretary of the State, Marco Rubio, announced that the updated guidelines with regards to the vetting process will be issued after an ongoing review of the entire situation. Until then, consular sections have been advised to suspend new student and exchange visa scheduling. Social media screening was applied selectively, targeting students involved in the pro-Palestine demonstrations. At Harvard, hundreds of students and faculty staged protest on Tuesday, voicing support for foreign students and opposing the administration's attempt to defund the university. Rubio clarified that appointments already scheduled will continue under the current rules, but all unbooked slots will now have to be removed. On the show, I'm joined by Professor Andrew Latham, who's author and professor of political science at the York University. I'm also joined by Daniel Block, who's a senior journalist. Professor Andrew, I'll come to you first. We are seeing a war of sorts taking place in front of our eyes. On one side is the Trump administration. On the other side, one of the most prestigious universities in the world, the Harvard University.
Yeah, it certainly is the opening shots in war that's not going to be limited to Harvard. Columbia also went through this a couple of weeks back, but it's going to be industry-wide, obviously. The desire to, there are multiple motives at work here, I think, one of which is to force these higher education institutions to subscribe to and respect the administration's anti-woke, anti-diversity, equity, inclusion agenda, which that's part of it. And the other part of it is, and I think this is completely misplaced and misguided, the idea that that these institutions are recruiting students from abroad that are anti-Semitic and harbor anti-Zionist and anti-Israel perspectives. That's just totally overblown. I think, though, fundamentally, there's just an anti-intellectual bias at work here, an anti-higher education bias at work. And it's going to have a tremendous impact because international students, by and large, across the industry, pay the full freight. They pay the full tuition. It's a huge revenue stream for American institutions of higher education, and it's really going to have a profound impact on the business model, as it were.
Right, Professor. Daniel, coming to you now, where do you think this will stop? Because as the professor was also pointing out, that this is a full industry and this is just the beginning. That's what it seems like, because the Trump administration, and personally it seems like the President of the United States of America, is targeting Harvard. That's what the world at the moment seems to believe.
Well, I think the short answer is we don't know where it will stop. But the slightly longer answer is it's not going to stop here. And it appears like it's going to go on for quite some time. So the White House and the Department of Education have listed dozens of schools that they're investigating for various reasons, whether it be anti-Semitism or alleged discrimination of other kind. As Andrew said, these investigations are, I think, in bad faith. They're little more than cover for the White House to advance its own ideological agenda and to try and find ways to pressure the American higher education system to get in line behind its political agenda. That said, there's a broad list of schools, universities, colleges across the country that are going to come in for attack. And the range could expand even beyond that. Now, how this ends, I see it ending in one of two ways, really. Either A, higher education institutions will fold like dominoes. They'll get in line behind President Trump, and those that don't will be marginalized, shunted to the side. Or B, the president will lose in some way, shape, or form. Now, that could be a high-profile legal defeat, say before the Supreme Court. It could come over the attacks on Harvard. It could eventually be a political defeat of some kind, but that's a long way away. And until we get there, I think the front is going to expand. More universities are going to come under attack. There'll be more attacks on Harvard specifically. So I don't see this stopping anytime soon.
Professor Andrew and Daniel, please stay on with me. Let's listen in to US President Donald Trump. He doubled down on his demand for a list of names of international students enrolled at Harvard. This is another escalation. The administration's standoff with the university is only increasing with each passing day. Listen in.
There are about 31%, almost 31% of foreigners coming to Harvard. We give them billions of dollars, which is ridiculous. We do grants, which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard. But they're 31%, but they refuse to tell us who the people are. We want to know who the people. Now, a lot of the foreign students we wouldn't have a problem with. I'm not going to have a problem with foreign students, but it shouldn't be 31%. It's too much because we have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there because you have 31% foreign. Now, no foreign government contributes money to Harvard. We do. So why are they doing so many? Number one. Number two, we want a list of those foreign students, and we'll find out whether or not they're okay. Many will be okay, I assume. And I assume with Harvard, many will be bad. And then the other thing is they're very anti-Semitic. Everybody knows they're anti-Semitic, and that's got to stop immediately.
Professor Andrew, we just heard the President of the United States of America. Is there an ideological war that we are seeing playing out in front of our eyes in the United States of America? The education institutions on one side and the president's ideology on the other side?
Well, I think that's probably an apt way of putting it, that this president has decided that he's going to go to war with, despite some of his hemming and hawing there, he's going to go to war with the higher education industry in the United States. And he wants to break their resistance. And I think resistance to his ideological agenda. First of all, it's 27% of students at Harvard are international, not 31%. He always gets his facts wrong. But more importantly and more profoundly, what's going on here is these are the opening shots in a war. And President Trump, wants to bring the entire industry into line with his ideological project. And he's camouflaging it in all kinds of ways. It's about, anti-Semitism and whatnot. But fundamentally, what he wants is a higher education industry which conforms to his ideological perspective and his ideological project. And Harvard can fight back. Harvard's got a $53 billion endowment. They can hire lots of lawyers to fight back, and it's going to go to the district courts, and then it'll go to the appellate courts, and then ultimately to the Supreme Court. Because what's at stake here is not just the business model, but what's at stake here is academic freedom. Not freedom of speech. Those two things are different, but academic freedom. And Harvard and the other institutions which are going to be attacked in the not too distant future really need to fight back hard. I'm in the industry. I'm a professor of international relations. I value academic freedom, and I think this is a hill that we should be willing to die on if necessary.
Right, Professor, for our viewers, let's just break down what exactly the US freezes new visa and what it actually means, the kind of impact that it will have on the Indian students who are now applying. First and foremost, there will be delayed semesters or even missed admissions that we will see. First-time applicants will actually be stuck in a limbo. They do not know what will happen next. Loss of non-refundable application fees or even tuition money. More vetting of social media. That's something that will, in all likelihood, happen in future. Rejections based on online activities of students. Scheduled interviews will continue as planned. So that's a little bit of a green signal there. Increased uncertainty for Indian students, all of them who are planning to study abroad, their plans will be in a limbo. Daniel, coming to you now, expect the unexpected. That is something that the world was prepared for when it was Donald Trump who became the president of the United States of America. But this kind of war within the US, with the prestigious institutions, I don't think that's something that the institutions or even the people of the United States thought of?
I think that he's gone further than a lot of people thought. I think that when he won office, or even before he won office, there was a debate within the United States among people who were not Trump supporters about, for lack of a better word, how bad it would be from their perspective, just how far he would go in trying to shut down dissent, in trying to bring civil society in line behind his vision, and penalizing actors or organizations that didn't agree to his line. There were a wide range of positions, but the one thing I've heard again and again from people is that this is further than they thought he would go, and much more quickly. I mean, just think about the courts, for example. And I know I'm talking a little bit more than about the higher education attacks right now, but it's all interrelated. We have a president who's signaling, and in some cases appears to be outright defying court orders. Other countries that have gone down this path, that have elected leaders that are aspiring strongmen, that want to crack down on civil society and bring the entire polity in line behind their vision, it usually takes them a little bit of time to do this. They have to stack the judiciary in various ways. They have to find intricate ways in order to crack down on higher education institutions. What we've seen from Trump is a full court press right off the bat. Open defiance, using every tool at their disposal to go after organizations that are independent. So yeah, I mean, I think that they've gone further than in some ways even people's worst nightmares suggested that they would.
Professor Andrew, coming to you now, do you think you are seeing a decline of democracy in the United States of America, something that the world never thought would happen?
I think American democracy is resilient, and I think it can withstand the Trump administration's attack on American democracy. We do have courts. We do have, if Congress would ever actually legislate, there are checks and balances here.
Right.
I'm not overly concerned about the outcome, but I am very much concerned, as my colleague just pointed out, I'm very much concerned about what the administration is up to. We have three branches. We have
Right.
a judicial system, we have a legislative system, and we have an executive branch. And the effort right now is to elevate the executive branch to primacy. I don't think it will work. But it troubles me enormously that the executive branch, including the chief executive, Donald J. Trump, is trying to do this. That's the scary bit. I think ultimately, I mean, he's not going to be around forever. And I don't think the project is going to work. But it's like Orban in Hungary or Malone. I mean, I could go on. There's a whole bunch of people aspiring in the Western world to be not quite dictators, but to be quasi or adjacent to dictators. Yeah.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share, and subscribe.